Does Nikola Jokic have the NBA MVP award locked up? The betting odds, they say that he does. But there's been a lot of detractors lately that are questioning how legitimate his MVP case is. They're saying that he hasn't actually done anything special this year. Why does Jokic deserve the MVP? They're doing the exact same thing they did last year. Jokic's numbers are the exact same, if not worse than last season. And some people have said he hasn't had any MVP moments. And it feels, Ryan, like there really is just a pushback to Jokic at this point because of how great he is, but also because he doesn't have some of the gaudy raw numbers that a lot of people have. And even the people with great advanced numbers, Jokic's are still better. And they're saying, oh, he's still the advanced stats merchant. And, some have come to the defense that are not a part of the Nuggets fan base and said, we just won an NBA championship. So I think that's a little different. Ryan, there are a lot of questions being asked right now. I think from the fans, not necessarily from the media, about why Jokic is in line to win his third MVP in 4 years. Some have said, including the Minnesota Timberwolves announcers, that he should be on his way to 4 straight MVPs. Ryan, why do you think it is that so many people are trying to dispel his MVP case? And do you have any data that you would like to share with us about some of his MVP numbers?
Well, I do have some data. Always got the data. Ryan Chartburn over here. Most important thing that Nuggets fans understand about Nikola Jokic is just how much he does for the Nuggets every single minute that he's out there on the floor. He carries a heavy burden. He sets up the team. He gets his own buckets. He does everything that you want. And the defense has also been pretty good for Denver throughout the season. It's been better than where it was last year. And I think Jokic, you could actually draw a through line to his defense as being better than it was last season. I thought that last year was some of his worst in terms of like consistently providing the best defensive effort because Denver was just trying to get to the playoffs. They knew what they had. But during the season, I think that they've put out some really great defensive lineups, some really great defensive numbers, and Jokic has been a part of that. I have a chart here that I put up yesterday. We're recording this on Saturday, March 30th. This is a different level of combinations that Jokic has been on with the starters. And one of the narratives that people put out there about Jokic is that he's a starter minutes merchant, is that what he's doing is he's benefiting the most of any player in the NBA, any MVP candidate for playing with starters. And I wanted to put this as a general sort of like combating against that narrative, because when the starters are out there with the bench units, they really struggle. Every lineup where Jokic is not on the floor and the starters are on the floor, or at least one starter is, I put out every single combo. There's only 15 different combinations that you can put of the other 4 starters out there. Denver is negative in 12 of the 15, or at least 11 of the 15, because one of them has not played, that Murray, KCP, MPJ lineup. But most of the minutes that the starters play when they are not with Nikola Jokic are really bad. For whatever reason, it just hasn't worked. And so I think that Denver, like a lot of people, they come up with these narratives, they come up with these discussion points that are based around why Jokic's numbers are so good, why his numbers are so great. They just don't exist, man. He has been great because he is great, and that is the story. And if he wanted to be even better, he probably could be, because Denver, they don't have to put up crazy numbers this year. He doesn't have to put up crazy numbers this year all the time in order to win. And Denver has been playing like that, and they play through him. And just the way that they've done that has really, like, he deserves a lot of that credit. He deserves a lot of the credit for the way that he's played and the MVP caliber performances that he consistently puts on, even if they're hiding in plain sight a little bit.
Yeah, Ron, I feel like it started last year, and I think as it started last year, it was the finals that kind of shut the narrative up. But you remember March last year, there were people making legitimate basketball arguments on their end that they didn't believe in March of last year that Nikola Jokic was a top 5 player in the playoffs. There were people saying that Nikola Jokic didn't deserve to win his third MVP. They were saying that there were players like Kevin Durant, that you would rather have in the playoffs. They were saying, some were saying Joel Embiid is a player you prefer over Jokic. And then Jokic went and led the entire playoffs in points, rebounds, and assists. And I think a lot of people got so enamored by that. And I think one of the things that and Ryan, you might remember saying this, I said that going into the year, this is going to be the easiest MVP he'll win in his career.
You said that, yeah.
Because the blowback last year was incredulous. People were questioning him winning the award based on his skin color. People were questioning him winning the award because he was stat batting to 100 triple doubles. Like, there were people on television trying to say that he knew that he was at about a 9.7, so he started taking his shots down and putting his assist up, and just nonsensical answers. And I think some of this is, right now, Jokic's line has moved because Luka's has grown. Luka is now overtaken or tied with Shai Gilgeous-Alexander for the second best odds on FanDuel to win the MVP award at a plus 1100. Jokic, even with his decrease, he's sitting at a minus 850.
Yeah.
So basically, what FanDuel is telling you is that he is an overwhelming favorite to win the MVP award. And this isn't just based off like, oh, this is what we think or this is our opinion. And if you just remember the last straw poll, I think he got 69 first place votes in the last straw poll. Since that point, the Denver Nuggets went on a 15-2 stretch, and they absolutely dominated what many perceive to be the best team in the NBA. And Jokic had a 32-point triple-double in that game. So I think a lot of people are just a little disconnected from the length of the 82-game season and how many great performances he's had and these great stretches of games that he's had. And so I think there's a lot of bias with the way Luka plays or Shai or Giannis, where people feel like they're just being outright disrespected. And so therefore, we're going to put an argument up against Jokic that he's getting favoritism because of all these non-basketball reasons. And I think it is just incredibly just too nearsighted to sit here and say that you cannot tell the story of the NBA as the best player in the world who's capping off one of the best playoff runs of all time, getting ready to lead into another one. And then we know he got robbed of an MVP last year, and then now for him to be in this situation right now, man, I just think people are just getting a little tired of greatness.
There's no doubt about it. I will say that the pushback, and you talked about this being the easiest MVP that he could ever win. Like that was the preseason narrative. And Joel Embiid was really going to put a run up for his money with the way that he was playing before he got hurt. The 65 game rule certainly affected things. And Shai has been fantastic, man. Luka's been fantastic. Those guys, there are different circumstances that will probably prevent them from winning, but they have had great seasons. And Luka in particular has just been very, very impressive, trying to get Dallas back into things. And if he gets to a 4 or a 5 seed and Denver's at a 3 seed, you might see some arguments from folks about, okay, if the actual win totals by the end of the season aren't that different, like let's say Denver finishes with 54 wins and Dallas finishes with 49. That wouldn't be that crazy, but with the talent discrepancy, with the way that Luka sort of has to shoulder everything, it wouldn't surprise me if more and more people sort of make the argument for Luka at that point. But that is a hard hill for him to climb. And Denver's already like, they just need to get to like 55, 56 wins. And that they can do that. They're at 51 right now. They need to go 4-4 or 5-3 the rest of the way. And I think that they're capable of doing that. And as long as Jokic doesn't have a high profile, horrible game, I think that they're like, it's pretty well locked up. Like, this wasn't a situation like last year where it was really anybody's guess as to who it was between Jokic and Embiid. And Jokic had a couple of really bad games while Embiid had a couple really amazing games, and that swung the vote.
Well, what was funny, I remember when I specifically tracked that in March, people said he was bad in March. He averaged 26, I think 11 and 9, and he had like a 66 true shooting in March. They just lost. They were losing games, so people were freaking out. And then Embiid had that 52-point monstrosity versus the Celtics with no Robert Williams and no Jaylen Brown. And then everybody's like, oh my gosh, handed him the award.
Gotta give it to him.
And this year, it feels like, I don't think that's going to happen because people learned their lesson last year. But I think some of this is too, like, I think everybody at this point, bro, we know what you're doing. You can struggle as much as you want. You can pretend as much as you want. We know what you're doing. we're familiar with your game, as Shaq said. I think some of this is like, look, man, everybody sees the Nuggets are just trying to get to the playoffs healthy and coast in. Okay, Jokic didn't play well yesterday. He had 32, 10, and 5. Like, you know what I mean? Like, he didn't have a great game, but it's a pretty great game. But I think that's kind of where the standard is right now. He's the best player in the world, so you're expecting these like outlier performances every night. You get into the playoffs, I think the story is different because at that point, all the gloves are off. Like, we're throwing our best blows possible, and I got a dude that can out bar you at any point in time in a series. So I do think he's going to win it this year. I did say going into the year it'll be his easiest one because I think that the arguments for everybody else, they're all going to fall in comparison to Jokic's overall greatness, and that's what's happening. And again, he still had the best individual season. I think it just doesn't look like what people want it to. Like, Luka has the 34-9-9 story. SGA has the 50, 30-point game story, and they led the young ascending Thunder to the top of the Western Conference. He doesn't have that because that's just not what the Nuggets needed. But what's funny is
also like Jokic is just the most consistent of
right.
any of the superstars where he is putting up whatever the team needs to win.
Right.
And sometimes it's 30 points, sometimes it's 20 rebounds, sometimes it's 15 assists. It just doesn't matter what it is from a night-to-night basis. He'll get the job done, but it's not like these massively like these massive point scoring games because that's just never going to be his goal. But it's going to be just fine. Like I think that Nuggets fans, it's going to be okay. Jokic is probably going to win the MVP. It would take a horrible situation for it to not happen, and I'd be shocked if it went any other way.
Yeah, well, we'll see, y'all. Let me know in the comment section what y'all think. Mile High Sport. This is Brian Chartburn. This is your boy Swipa talking about Jokic's MVP case. Do you think he's going to win? What does he have to do over the last few games to secure that award? Let us know. We'll talk to y'all on the other side. We out.